Hi, this is Andy Supple with AppliedAnalyses.com. Today I'm going to show you how to use start values in M+ to arrange classes in a latent class analysis. So anyone who has used M+, for example, to do latent class analysis may have discovered that occasionally you will run a latent class analysis. You'll get classes, they'll be ordered in a particular way that makes sense to you. Then you introduce predictors or covariates of those classes, and in your output the classes have shifted or changed. I'm going to show you a relatively simple way to organize your M+ syntax so that you get the classes in the order that you want them. So this is a typical M+ syntax file. I'm using a data set of high school students who answered questions about their involvement in bullying behaviors, both being victimized or bullying others. And I have 3 items that are indicative of having been a victim of bullying in the past 30 days. So I was made fun of, I was picked on, I was called names. And then bullying others. I teased others, I harassed others, I spread rumors about other people. I'm asking for 4 classes, and these are all categorical items that I coded as 0, 1, so 1 indicating any involvement with the target activity. And the rest of this is just typical input for latent class analysis in M+. So if I click run, what I'm going to be interested in are a couple things. So first of all, how many individuals are classified into each of the 4 classes? So if I scroll down, I typically will look at the final class counts based on most likely latent class membership. So what I see is that I have a large group of about 65% of my sample being in class 4. And then about 18–19% in class 3, 6.5% in class 2, 9% in class 1. What do the classes mean? Well, if you have experience with this, you've seen the threshold values that are pretty difficult to look at and interpret, but essentially large negative numbers correspond to relatively high probabilities. So if we scroll down further, M+ will give us results in probability scale. So like I said, for class 2, for example, that had those large negative values for the thresholds, there's high probability across the board in the items. So that's probably a bully victim group. The other thing that helps to look at are the plots. In this case, I requested plots of the individual items. And what I can see is this pink line represents my large group, where there's a low conditional probability that those in this group engaged in or experienced any of the bullying behaviors. For class 2, which is 6%, there's a relatively high probability or conditional probability of experiencing all the behaviors. The green line, high conditional probability of being a victim but not bullying others. And then this red line kind of mixed, but seems like relatively high probability of engaging in bullying, lower on being victimized. So I have an uninvolved bully victims, probable bullies. So what we often want to do in M+ is introduce predictors. So in this case, I'm going to use a dummy coded race ethnicity variable. And I'm going to look at, or I'd be interested in seeing whether or not there are differences based on the likelihood of being in the different typologies or classes based on whether or not adolescents are Hispanic or Black versus white in this case. So I've added 2 variable names in the use variables line, Hispanic and Black. And then under model, I'm going to add in a C on Hispanic and Black. C represents the classes. The overall command just tells M+ that you have some model commands for your latent class or your mixture model. When I run this, the key issue of what I want to show you is that the classes seem to have shifted. So again, I'll go down to the most likely class membership, and that 66% now. So a few people moved classes once I introduced covariates, but the largest class is now class 3. Probably the bully victims is now class 1. The group that before was class 3, the victims only, is now class 2. You get the point here that what happened was the classes were rearranged. Now, if in my mind, when I'm going now to examine how predictors are related to being in the classes, I still want the largest group to be class 4. That helps me keep in mind what it is I'm looking at. So what you may find frustrating is that when these classes shift, you don't like the way they shifted. What can you do about that? Well, what you can do, I'll go back to the input file, is you can add in the output command. You can request S values or start values. So at the bottom now of the M+ output file, we will see the final estimates used as starting values. So these are the actual threshold parameters that M+ came up with. If I copy these, go back into the syntax file, and under the model command, paste that syntax in, then I can change which class is ordered in terms of which profile of responses to the various items. So remember, this group is the likelihood, the bully victim group, because these big negative thresholds mean high conditional probability. I want that group to be class 1, so I'm going to leave it that way. The group, though, that has the low probability across the board, I want that to be class 4. So I'm going to change this from C hashtag pound 3 to C4. Oops, 4. And then this group that's relatively low on being victimized and moderate on bullying, I want that to be class 2. And then the remaining class, which is going to be relatively high and being victimized, relatively low on bullying others, I want that one to be class 3. So I'm going to click run. And what I'll notice is I'll double check that this did what I wanted. And so now I do have the 4th class is the uninvolved. The 3rd class are the victims, bully victims with the 1st class, bullies are the 2nd. This helps with a couple things. So for example, in M+ output, when I get to the regression, I have class 1, class 2, class 3. The reference group is class 4 or the uninvolved. So this is telling me are Hispanic or African American adolescents more or less likely to be in the bully victim group relative to the 4th group, which is the uninvolved. So this is a quick and relatively easy way to order classes in M+ using start values. If you have any questions or want to make any comments on this video, you can below. If you want to contact me, you can go to my webpage, www.appliedanalyses.com, or email me at ajsupple@appliedanalyses.com. And thank you for watching.